Hey everyone, I am back with part 2 of fascinating deck building decisions made by MHA Top Cutters for the Gen Con RLE this past weekend. Yesterday I did the first half of the lists, and today I will be talking about the top 8. Let's just jump straight into it today. Alright, at number 8 we had Alex with Evil Overhaul. And one foundation he was running that surprised me was Human Garbage, which is a set 5 card, 1 diff, 3 high block that says you can remove a copy of Human Garbage from your discard pile to ready this foundation, playable while committed. And this is something kind of unique about Overhaul that I talked about in a few past videos, is that Overhaul gets to get away with playing foundations that typically wouldn't be played, because then Overhaul can just flip the foundation when it's of no more use to give the +2 damage. So Overhaul can use this, ready it once or twice, and then when it's of no more use and there's no more Human Garbage in the discard pile, can just go ahead and flip it for damage. So Overhaul gets to get away with playing these cards. And he's running it instead of cards like Refreshing Slice, which does the same thing, but it costs some momentum. And it stuns one of your rival, but stun is becoming less and less powerful as we get more and more stun hate. And he's running it over cards like House of Cards, which is surprising to me since House of Cards is very, very valuable momentum hate. But if we look at his list, it's definitely a Throverhaul list, which we typically think of Overhaul playing throws more on the life symbol. But here we have it on the death with the evil symbol with Nebulous Stare, Facepalm Takedown, and Invincible Clasp. And then you get Trigger, Vile Seizing, and Tongue Whip, which if you're playing the evil symbol right now, you're basically always playing Trigger, Vile Seizing, and Tongue Whip. They're kind of like, everybody's core. But what's fascinating about this list is that he's playing a ton of evil foundations that add the damage, including these two cards, Crystallize and Resigned, that we don't see very often. And he's got Floating and Brute Strength and Larceny, so a little more of the common ones. But I did find these two very, very interesting. One thing that surprised me is that there's not really a momentum outlet, despite being a throw list. Typically a throw list will have something to spend the momentum on. I guess there is something. There is Invincible Clasp, where you can discard a momentum to cancel and enhance, which does come, you can cancel a Wall Cling. That's very, very powerful. So there's not nothing, but it does surprise me that there's not too many momentum outs. But it's an evil list with throws that adds a lot of damage and still gets to play the defense of Overhaul. All right, at number 7, we have David Thomas with Chaos Tamaki Amajiki. And he is running 4X Ice Storm instead of cards like Chicken Kick. Now, I know this doesn't seem too surprising, but a lot of Amajiki lists just ignore Ice Storm because it doesn't have a momentum effect, whereas a card like Chicken Kick is giving everything a damage once it goes into your momentum. But both of these cards set up an Indiscriminate Shock quite nicely because they're both low attacks, and so they're both making your rival use their low, and then you can hit them with the Indiscriminate. What I really like about Ice Storm is, number one, it's amazing defense for a 7-hander with 20 health who needs defense to survive. And number two, because of Powerful 3, it gives this Amajiki list the capability to play 3 bombs on a lethal attack string. So for example, you could play an attack like Zero Gravity Lift, you could add all the Amajiki damage to it, your rival blocks that, then you could play a Ice Storm and you could discard all of your momentum into the Ice Storm for the Powerful 3, make your rival block that, and then you can hit them with the Indiscriminate Shock, which becomes huge on its own. So it makes this Amajiki list capable of these huge lethal attack strings. Obviously you're only dumping your momentum into the Ice Storm if you know for a fact it's going to make lethal. One other cool thing about this list is everything is pretty, like the core list is pretty clear. Everything's at 3 ofs or 4 ofs, right? You got Vast Hybrid, Broken Psyche, you have your typical Chaos 0 diffs with Struggling with Studies and Chivalrous, no surprise there. And then the attack lineup is pretty clear, and you have a couple manifests. So everything there is very clear cut and pretty similar across all Amajikis. However, what I really like is that David is playing 8 cards at a 1 of. So we have Cool and Tough to protect our momentum or send it back to our hand if somebody tries to discard it. Force Quirk Activation, Levitate, Agency Trainees, Concentrate, Runaway, League of Villains, Seafood Slugger. I think that knowing what to put of as a 1 of really separates the great players from just the good players. Because David knows exactly what he needs in certain situations to be playing at a 1x. And a lot of times he's got a second copy in his sideboard, like the second Cool and Tough, a second Concentrate, a second Runaway. I really like seeing a few lists mainboarding Concentrate. I think this is the second list out of the top 16 that is now mainboarding Concentrate to be able to cancel things like Futures now and Capture Evildoers. I think Concentrate cancels Future now. It's just an ability on an action, not an enhance. I think so. I'm not 100%. So if I'm wrong on that, just let me know. But I really like all these 1-ofs in the deck. All right, number 6. We had Robert Turner on good Mirio Togata. And he was running Plummeting Punch at a 3-of. And he wasn't really running it over a different card, but he was running it instead of like a 50 to 60 card deck. So most of the Mirios that we saw top at the Webcam Regional and then the Oceanic Regional were all running pretty small deck sizes. They were all like 50 to 60 cards. Maybe there was one that was above 60 cards. I can't quite remember. But in this Mirio list, we are running a 72 card deck. It's definitely a Mirio list that is prepared to play a longer game. We have quite a bit more defense with Nice Try, Specialist of Sound, and so on. And I like this. If you're going to be playing a longer game, then you need more deadlock threats. So we already have Pull No Punches and Practical Studies, but now we also have Plummeting Punch, which says like commit 1, destroy 1, flip 1, just an insane deadlock enhance. And it's a off-zone punch, so if you run into an Eraser Head or someone, you can still be playing non-mids. And he's pairing it with Hardened Chop and Texas Smash, which are also off-zone punches. So I really like this list. I am surprised that there's no sideboard, and I am surprised that we are not playing any Unrivaled Combatant. But other than that, I very much like this list. In my video that I made about if I was to be playing Mirio at Gen Con, what would I run? I put in that I would run a copy of Plummeting Punch. Now, Robert is running 3 of them and not just 1 of them. So that's very, very cool. All right, number 5, we have Mitchell Simono on good Kyokujiro. And this is Mitchell's Staff Strike list, which Mitchell has already topped a regional in the Kansas City with Staff Strike. This is Mitchell's Kansas City Staff Strike list. So what I want to do here is just compare the two lists and see how Mitchell is evolving. One decision that was made was we switched the 1x Passing the Torch to a 1x Big 3. That's not really a huge game changer. It's just changing a 2-diff to a 1-diff, and they both still draw a card. And everything else is pretty much the same, although Mitchell did go from 35 foundations in his Kansas City list to 33 foundations in this list. So he's wanting to see attacks more often. And the foundations that he cut were mainly this 2x Lost in Thought. Instead of maining Lost in Thought, the Lost in Thought has now been moved to the sideboard. But as far as I could tell, everything else is pretty much the same. All right, at number 4, we have Travis Tangeman on Life Recovery Girl. Now, Travis has actually already topped with Recovery Girl twice this year. He topped Florida with Recovery Girl, and then he topped Kansas City with Recovery Girl. So I've also put Travis's Kansas City Recovery Girl list on here, and there's been quite a few updates made. So you can see in the Kansas City list, he's running this Focused Attack and Ruthless Mockery. And in this list, and he's running, 48 plus 21, that's 69 plus this. It's a 72 card list. And the new Recovery Girl for this last weekend was 57, 87, 89, 93. So he's gone from 72 cards to 93 cards. Cycling is really, really bad for Recovery Girl because we always want to be building from our discard pile and having lots of choices. And Recovery Girl likes to play a longer game. Or at least she's very capable of playing a longer game. And some interesting things is that Ruthless Mockery has been completely taken out and replaced with Recovery Time. And I'm not sure it probably wasn't like a game-changing decision, but just that Travis would rather just go ahead and gain 4 rather than saying your attacks get -2 for the rest of the combat phase. But also Focused Attack is out. So Focused Attack was being used because it was mainly a mid-punch lineup. And now we have Focused Attack out because it was going to be this huge attack. It had great deadlock threat because Recovery Girl likes to play longer. And then you could change it into a throw. But instead, we've changed that for cards like Command Pigeon Flock, which was not in the deck earlier, which can build an ally foundation. And Ryukyu Agency Trainees is an ally foundation that came out with set 5 that we can build in. And then we can use Agency Trainees to then build in another foundation. So you can build those 2 foundations in a single turn for free. That's pretty neat. We also get ally foundations like Childhood Friends, which can return an attack back to our hand, which is nice since we're only a 5-hander. What else is ally? Cats is an ally. So there you go. You've got lots of ally choices to build in with Command Pigeon Flock. And then we can see that instead of like focused attack being our huge bomb attack, we have repeated 100% smash with powerful 3. And we have forceful blow with powerful 4 that can both be made into these massive, massive throws. Those were the main changes that I found between the 2 lists. Mostly it was just a ton of adding cards. Obviously we've got Rejuvenating Smash there at a 4 of, even though I suppose we're not discarding much. If we actually can activate the free momentum from Rejuvenating Smash if we went ahead and discarded with Body Rejuvenation and gave it -2 speed. So you could discard, give it -2 speed, use the momentum for +3 speed. Okay, there you go. All right, number 3, we got Justin Birch on Air Kyokujiro. Now, we've seen Air Jiro quite a bit, but this is a very different build on the Air Jiro. So typically when we see Air Jiro, you see 0 gravity lift and electric jolt to deal damage at the beginning. Then they're going to instant explosive release, send the instant explosive release to their momentum, and then they have specialized sound waves on board, and they can just sound waves chain and finish you off with a home run comet. Throw in a few double jabs to never play on progressive. And, we've seen that list. It got 2nd place at the HLC and won the UK regional in season 1. But in this list, we are basically saying we're not interested in playing 3 damage and 4 damage attacks. We just want to play all the big ones. So we are playing 4x Pillar Swing, which of course can go to our momentum. We are playing 3x Indiscriminate Shock, and we are playing 4x Home Run Comet. So 11 of our 19 attacks are just these massive damage attacks. And then we are throwing in the specialized sound waves and the double jab pummel. Other than that, I really like the 1x Web of Blades to protect against speed hate. And everything else is pretty much, your typical Jiro list. All right, it is fun that there's no sideboard. This is our 2nd top 8 list with no sideboard. So very, very interesting that you can just believe in your core list and stick with it. And anyway, something to be said there. All right, number 2, the runner-up, Justin Martin on Chaos Mimic. Okay, I put Mimics, but I meant Mimic. One cool decision is typically in Chaos, you just start out by saying, okay, I'm going to play Release, I'm going to play Requesting Assistance, I'm going to play Basic Training, I'm going to play the excited one, the Midnight 0 def. But you say, okay, I'm going to play these 0 defs, and then we'll go from there. But Justin completely just ignored Requesting Assistance and decided to go with Training with Gunhead, which makes a lot of sense when you see his list, because Training with Gunhead, it's mostly for the top enhance. If the check to play this attack was modified by an effect, this attack is +1 speed. And then you also have the benefit of the 2nd enhance, but it's really, really powerful in a Twisting Azure Inferno deck, because once you play a single Twisting Azure Inferno and get it to 7 damage and play the enhance, every single attack that you play is going to have its check modified, which means every single attack is getting +1 speed. It also doesn't really need the Twisting Azure. If you didn't have a Twisting Azure Inferno, Double Jab Pummel can still get it, and if you use your trigger to get the +1 speed, you still get it. So there's still some other ways. Now, I'm pretty OCD, and I like things to be even, so this list makes me very, very happy that we have 19 foundations, 19 attacks, and 19 assets, and it's just perfect harmony, and I think that gave Justin quite a bit of power this weekend, just the power of being even. One thing to note is that he's only running 3 Twisting Azure Inferno, despite Twisting being very, very important to the deck, but you really don't need to run 4, because there's, of course, 1/3 of the deck is assets, and as soon as you check an asset, you're going to be able to go pick up whatever attack you want out of your discard pile using Mimic, so you can always get the Twisting Azure. So there wasn't really a need to play a 4th one, which I thought was interesting, and that means that you get a nice mix of attacks. We're not 4xing any attack in the deck, actually. And we get Cheerful Uppercut for a little bit of defense. Mimic is typically very aggressive because he just gets to slam damage with training weights and play a lot of attacks on very few assets. And that's always been a benefit of the Chaos charge package with Double Jab and Twisting Azure, is that you're ignoring progressives to just an insane degree. But that's it for Mimic. I really liked that. I mean, when's the last time we saw a Chaos deck that was only running 6 0-def foundations? It feels like every Chaos deck we see is running 20 0-defs. So very, very unique build there. And at number 1, we had Andrew Holder on Life Overhaul. And he was running a punch package on Life Overhaul, but was completely ignoring Rejuvenating Smash. And typically when you think Life Punches, you immediately think about Rejuvenating Smash. But instead, Andrew was playing some spicy one-ofs with Naval Laser Beam and Cannon Blast. Cannon Blast is very, very powerful because Andrew is using repeated smash to ready his stage. So the commit costs for the enhances on Cannon Blast are much easier to pass. And of course, it just kills people. And then Naval Laser Beam helps unflip your stage, which is beneficial as Overhaul since you're adding damage to everything and you don't want, Overhaul likes to play this longer game and find his way into wins and be very, very chameleon-like. He can bend his game to the way that he needs to win. So Naval Laser Beam, and it's Breaker 2 on defense. But the core of this list is basically you get Tongue Whip to add a speed to everything. You get Heroic Strike and Back Alley Haymaker to stun your opponent out. Repeated to ready your stage. And Future Charge to draw. So that's the core of the attack list. But I liked having the Naval Laser Beam and the Cannon Blast as one-ofs. Now, Andrew had made a video a few weeks ago where he took one of the starting iterations of this list to locals. He did really well at locals, and then he uploaded a video where he went over his list. He made a point of saying this is not a finalized list, it's just in the making. I just went ahead and thought I would share it with you, which I think is really, really cool because it gives us the opportunity to look at Andrew's past list and look at his list now and see what's changed and why. So a few things from Andrew's old list is in the attack lineup. He was running 2 of the Tetra Terror Onslaught, but like he said in his video, he was finding most of the time he was just losing 6 health and his rival was blocking it, and you have to have it to echo it. You have to have the momentum. He was running a Rejuvenating Smash, which was cut, and he cut out the Hardened Claw Crusher. And then he added in the Heroic Strikes to lean more into the stun and the 1x Cannon Blast. The other thing that was changed was Airy was taken out for Triss Cheek Cape, which I think is very interesting. I probably butchered the way you say that card. But Cape gets a very strong Deadlock Enhance. I can't quite remember what it is. I think it's like you get to add ranged attacks from your card pool to your hand. Well, guess what? Repeated 100% Smash has ranged. Cannon Blast has ranged. Tongue Whip has ranged. So right there we have 9 cards with ranged. I think Naval Laser Beam even has range. So maybe that's 50% of the attack lineup. So the Deadlock was definitely on board. And then, of course, you can commit it to unflip a committed foundation, which is very powerful in Overhaul. So I really like adding the Cape in at a one-of. We also see Lessons from Tayaki was added in. And again, I think this is for the strong Deadlock that Lessons from Tayaki gives you. And we see a Taking the Gloves Off that was added in that we didn't have. And we have a Heroic Assistance added in as a 2x that we didn't have in this past list. So that right there is 5 cards that were added in that all have very, very strong Deadlock enhances, which is something that Life Overhaul has kind of been wanting. At least in my experience when I played Life Overhaul, I played a few locals and weekly Wednesday webcam with Life Overhaul. And in my experience, I was kind of disappointed in the lack of Deadlock. So I was running cards like Piercing Needle to get the Deadlock Stun 3. But here we can see that Andrew's added in 5 cards with Deadlock, and Heroic Assistance is very, very powerful because if we have a ton of selective committal in this game, and Heroic Assistance completely stops that, because if they say commit, you're passing the torch, then you can flip Heroic Assistance and say already my passing the torch and already something else. And if you have 2, like if you're facing like a 4th kind and you have 2 keeping Airy safe and 1 Heroic Assistance, you just completely nullify 4th kinds once per game. He'll say stun 4, say I'll stun these 2 keeping Airy safes, I'll ready them, and then I'll flip Heroic Assistance and ready those other cards, and there goes your once per game. Just a very, very strong stun hate in this list. You either had to use your selective commit to commit down heroic assistance, or just commit down something else and force them to flip their heroic assistance. But you had to fight your way through it. And then, of course, Overhaul gets to play a lot of spicy one-ups because he gets to constantly be unflipping things from his stage or blocking with them from his stage. So he gets to play a one-of Evade and Copy, a one-of Faith Shield, one-of Wall Cling, and not feel bad about playing those with one-of. And then the one-of Tight-Lipped is just nice because then you can block from your stage with the one mid-block. All right, that is it for this Gen Con RLE. I had a really fun time jumping through these lists. It was really nice that a lot of these players had topped multiple RLEs this season with very similar decks, and then we get to go back and compare how their decks have evolved. I think there were like 4 or 5 people who topped with a character that they had already topped an RLE with this season. So very, very cool there. Before I let everyone go, let me just remind you, I am giving away a box of Undaunted Raid. All you have to do to enter is make a UVS Ultra Spiker Vash deck on any symbol. Send the deck link to me using the Google form in the description of this video. I will judge the list based on viability and creativity. The deadline is the day that I reach 100 subscribers. I think as of now I'm at 78 subscribers, so I'm 22 away. Probably be 1 or 2 weeks, might be 3 weeks. So you have lots of time to go ahead and create a list and send it over to me. I will then make a video where I show everybody's lists, and I will send the winner a box of Undaunted Raid. All right, guys, this was a very fun video to make, and I will see you guys next time.